يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ثم أما بعد. Things that invalidate the fast, mufsidat. The definition of a fast is to fast in the days of Ramadan from Fajr up until Maghrib for the one who is legally responsible, i.e. a Muslim who's reached the age of maturity and who is healthy enough to do so and who is not traveling. And if a traveler chooses to fast, that's better for the traveler to fast from the morning to the evening with its intention. If somebody doesn't eat all day and they just decide to eat at night, do we say that person has been fasting? No. See, that person might be on a diet, didn't get any food to eat, right? Was waiting for the food in the evening. Fasting will only be recognized and it will only be considered as a fast if there's an intention behind it. Is that okay? Some people, they come to you in Ramadan and say, I forgot to make an intention. I woke up in the morning, I had my suhoor, I brushed my teeth, I prayed my fajr, went to sleep, but I forgot to make an intention. You say to them, why did you wake up? They say, to fast. Why did you eat in the middle of the night? They say, to fast. Why did you brush your teeth? They say, to fast. You did all of that to fast and you're still looking that you didn't make an intention. All of that is your intention. Is that clear? Some people, they overcomplicate intentions. Intentions don't have to be uttered. Even though it's good to say them out to remind ourselves as to what we're actually doing, to remind ourselves as to what we're doing, but the place of the intention is the heart. Is that clear? If we make an intention in the heart, that's enough. If we wake up, we know I'm waking up to fast. Is that clear? So things that invalidate the fast are known as mufsidat. These actions of one who is fasting are divided into 4 categories. The first, those that require a makeup as well as an expiation. Now what does that mean? Mufsidat are invalidators of the fast. Somebody might do something during the day which breaks their fast. Is that clear? Now that falls under a number of different categories. If somebody does something and their fast breaks, of course they have to make up that fast. Is that clear? There are certain times when they have to make up that fast and also make a kaffarah. Kaffarah means expiation. Expiation is when somebody commits a crime and they have to pay up for that crime, that's this payment. Is that clear? Now the expiation of breaking a fast intentionally. There's only expiation when somebody breaks a fast intentionally. So somebody is fasting and they intentionally eat or drink during the day. What must they do? After Ramadan, they must make up that day. But also, they must give a kaffarah. What's the kaffarah? Number 1, they should free a slave. If the person says, I don't have a slave, then you move to the second option, which is to fast 60 days consecutively. Of course, you start the fast at Fajr, break it at Maghrib. Next day, Fajr, Maghrib, but it has to be 60 days of fasting on the trot. one after the other. The scholars have said, if somebody genuinely can't do that, they try to do it in the winter days when the days are short, but they still can't do it, they can't maintain it, then they go to the third option of feeding 60 poor people. Is that clear? Feeding 60 poor people. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, Messenger of Allah, I broke my fast in Ramadan. He did it intentionally. The Prophet ﷺ said, free a slave. He said, I don't have a slave. He said, fast for 60 days. He said, Messenger of Allah, I couldn't do one day, how am I going to do 60? He said, okay, go and feed 60 people. He said, I can't feed my family, let alone 60 people. Those were the rulings of expiation. Now, we have to understand the encompassing nature of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ could have said to him, well, this is the ruling. Either you free a slave, fast 60 days, or feed 60 poor people. If you can't do that, sorry, I can't help you. But the Prophet ﷺ didn't say that. What did he say to him? He said, sit down. So wait here. The Prophet ﷺ had hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that perhaps there could be some expansion made for this person. Is that clear? So he sat in the gathering of the Prophet ﷺ. A short while later, a man came with a basket of dates. He said, Messenger of Allah, these dates are for charity. The Prophet ﷺ said, where's that man who broke his fast? He came. The Prophet said to him, take these dates and feed the poor people of Medina. He picked up the basket and he's walking. And suddenly he thought to himself, there is nobody poorer than him and his family in Medina. So he turns back. He said, Messenger of Allah, by Allah, there is no family that's poorer than my family in Medina. The Prophet ﷺ said, well, go home and feed your family. Well, go home and feed your family. You see how great the horizon of the Prophet ﷺ was in encompassing people, making things easy for people, accommodating people. This is how we have to understand the religion, not the narrow-minded narrative that we have. Because it's this narrow-minded narrative that we have that's making people run away from the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to make things easy, not difficult. We have to see Allah's mercy is vast. Allah said, وَرَحْمَتِي وَسِعَتْ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, and my mercy has encompassed everything. And Allah said in the Hadith Qudsi that my mercy precedes my anger. Is that clear? No. So, in the month of Ramadan, if somebody doesn't fast for a day or more intentionally, any day that somebody doesn't fast intentionally, they must fast that day, but also they must give an expiation. There might be somebody who's never fasted before, who's a Muslim but hasn't fasted in their life ever before. This Ramadan might be their first time they're fasting. What's the ruling for that person? The ruling for that person is all of the days of Ramadan that they previously missed, they must make up. Is that clear? They must fast them. That's Qada, and that's obligatory upon them. Try to choose the easy days of winter, short days. Have an early breakfast and a late lunch, and you're done. Alongside that, that person also has to make expiation. Does that person have to make an expiation for every single day? No. What the scholars have said, one expiation is enough for all of those years of fasting. Is that clear? One expiation is enough for all of the previous years of fasting. So if that person gives one expiation, that's it, the expiation is done. Now they have to just fast all of the days that they missed. If ever in the future they miss another day intentionally, then they have to give another expiation. Is that clear? So for previous expiations, one is enough. For future ones, a new one is needed. So if somebody intentionally misses a fast, they must make an expiation. If somebody fasts and during the day they intentionally break their fast, then they must also make an expiation. Is that clear? That's the first category. And we've said what the expiation is. However, if somebody eats or drinks out of forgetfulness, They walk into the kitchen, they totally forget that they're fasting and they start eat and drink. Soon as they remember, what should they do? They should stop. If there's still food in the mouth, they should spit it out and stop. The Prophet ﷺ said regarding this person, فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَكَ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاكَ. It was Allah who has fed you and given you drink. That's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which doesn't break the fast. Is that clear? Also, if somebody eats and drinks out of forgetfulness, that doesn't mean they can carry on eating and drinking for the rest of the day. They think, okay, I've broke it and I've broke it. No, that doesn't break the fast. Is that clear? That doesn't break the fast. Even the one who intentionally breaks the fast by eating or drinking intentionally, out of respect for the day, even though the fast is broken, that person should cease to eat and drink. Is that clear? Because the day of Ramadan has a hurma. It has a sanctity to it. And that sanctity should not be violated. Is that clear? Those that require a makeup without expiation. So there's certain things that break the fast, but there's no expiation connected to it. Why is there no expiation connected to it? Because the way that the fast was broken are not normal ways in which people would nourish their bodies. So for example, if somebody eats something that's not normally eaten, let's say somebody picks some earth and eats it, right? Picks up some earth and eats it. That's not normally eaten. It's not of any nutritional value, right? That will break the fast, but there's no expiation connected to it. Is that clear? That fast has to be made up without an expiation. Likewise, somebody is making wudu and they rinse their mouth and some water goes down the throat. Or likewise, when washing out the nose, some water goes down the throat. Of course, this breaks the fast. This is why the scholars have said, when you are fasting, you have to be very careful when you rinse your mouth and wash your nose out. You should not exaggerate. If you exaggerate, perhaps some water will go down the throat and break your fast. But if this happens and somebody breaks their fast because some water goes down the throat, they will have to make up that day, but there's no expiation. Why is there no expiation? Because the person didn't do it intentionally. Is that clear? What if somebody has a bleeding gum? Somebody's got a bleeding gum and they can taste blood going into their throat. Scholars have said this is an ibtila. This is a tribulation that has come upon this person. It will break the fast and a person would have to make up every fast they break like this. Is that clear? No. So this second category is of fasts that break, but they have no expiation. They just have to be made up. You're asleep, somebody comes and pours water into your mouth, right? Your fast is broken, but you don't have to make expiation. The last one is important here. Vomiting, does it break the fast? A lot of people think it breaks the fast. If somebody naturally vomits, it won't break the fast. But if somebody chokes themselves and forces themselves to vomit, then that will break the fast. If somebody naturally vomits, and some of the vomit reaches the mouth and then returns, sometimes this happens when somebody, that will break the fast also. Is that clear? But if somebody naturally vomits and nothing returns, this will not break the fast and they can continue fasting for the remainder of the day. Is that clear? Those that require nothing and are not disliked. Cupping, hijama. This has become a trend in our times. It's a sunnah. Cupping, it's an ancient treatment. It's an ancient treatment of many different illnesses of the body, and it was a treatment that the Prophet ﷺ also adopted and he practiced. So he had hijama done many times, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in different parts of his blessed body where blood is taken out, and it freshens up the body, and it relieves the body of many different pains. Nowadays it's become a trend in England, people making hijama, but we have to be very careful. This treatment of hijama is for hot climates, not for cold climates. Is that clear? Which means it's not necessary it will work here, because it's not the right climate for it. Hijama is for hot countries and not for cold countries. This is number one. Number two, the people engaging in hijama, or the practitioners of hijama, they are like herbal doctors, like hakims. And herbalists and herbal doctors, they have to spend a lifetime in this science until they become experts. Nowadays you can do like a 6-week course and become a hijama practitioner and open up your clinic and say, I'm doing the sunnah hijama, come along and charge £60, and you're making your, right? That's fine, but the problem is that this practice of it has a lot of it needs a lot of experience into the temperament of the people who you are treating. It doesn't match every person's temperament. This is why the person who makes hijama has to be not somebody who's just done a 6-week course and that's it. Has to be somebody who is well grounded in ancient medicines. Is that clear? No. So be careful. And there are also days in which the Prophet ﷺ instructed people not to do hijama. Amongst them is Saturday, right? But most of the hijama clinics have to open on Saturday because people are off work, right? So they are opposing the sunnah, right? And a lot of people have opposite, reverse effects of hijama because either it's done on the wrong day, or the person was not in the right state of mind to have it done, etc., etc. And a lot of problems can occur. And from amongst the problems that can occur at the time of having hijama done is that if somebody has some type of influence from the jinn, at that particular time it can erupt. At that particular time it can erupt. So if the hijama practitioner is not somebody who is also qualified in treating people from jinn, you're going to have a hard time. Right? Might end up dead at the end of it. Right? So if you are in a hot country, it's fine to have hijama done. Here in this country, it's not really the need of this country. Just go to the doctors and have some blood taken out and Bob's your uncle. Scholars have said hijama is fine during the day of Ramadan as long as it doesn't weaken a person. If a person feels, if I have hijama done, it's going to weaken my body for the rest of the day, then they shouldn't have it done. Should wait until the evening or wait until after Ramadan. Using the toothstick miswak is also fine during the day of Ramadan. Is that clear? Using the miswak. Where should you use the miswak? Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha said, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would never enter into his blessed house except that he would use the miswak. Where would he use the miswak? At home. Number one. The second time when he would use the miswak is عند كل وضوء. He would make miswak at the time of wudu. Is that clear? He would make miswak at the time of wudu. And the Hanafi scholars interpreted the other hadith, which is at the time of every prayer, to be at the time of wudu. Why? Because normally you brush your teeth when you're making wudu and you're washing your face, not when you're standing in salah. The Shafi'i scholars interpreted it to be right before the commencing of the prayer. Is that clear? In any case, what do we notice? We notice that the miswak is a sunnah that's made at particular times, in particular places. This is what we have to understand about the sunnah, is that it's done at particular times and particular places. And because it's a sunnah, it doesn't mean it can be done everywhere. Some people, you see them walking on the streets and they got their miswak in their mouths. I think, oh my, how disgusting. Nobody comes out with their toothbrush and Colgate and brushes their teeth whilst walking on the streets. Why are these people pulling out their miswaks and brushing their teeth? It's not the right place. I was sitting in a lesson with our teacher Shaykh Ahmed al-Fadil, and one student at the back pulled out the miswak and started brushing. The Shaykh said, put that away. This is not time for miswak, this is time for lesson. Right? So the miswak is a sunnah, but we have to understand the sunnah of using the sunnah. Is that clear? The sunnah of using the sunnah is either at home or when you are in the washroom making your wudu. Not in any other times, not walking on the street. Is that clear? So if somebody wants to use the miswak during the Ramadan, that's fine. What about toothpaste? Toothbrush and toothpaste. There's a dispute amongst the scholars. There are some scholars, they say, using the toothpaste during the day of Ramadan is fine as long as the particles of toothpaste don't enter into the throat. Second group of scholars said it's going to be very difficult for those particles not to enter into the throat, so therefore it's best not to use toothpaste during the day of Ramadan. Is that clear? No. But there are two opinions. So if somebody wants to take the other opinion, it's fine. Where the first group of scholars, where do they get their opinion from? Previously the scholars said that if a mother needs to chew onto some food to feed her baby, then she can chew the food as long as no particles of that food enter into her throat and feed her child. Those scholars said this is the same. Brushing the teeth, as long as no particles enter into the throat, that's the analogy that they made. Those people can take that opinion. But those people who don't have a need for that, then they should take the other opinion of not brushing the teeth. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, لَخَلُوفُ فَمِ الصَّائِمِ أَطْيَبُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مِنْ رِيحِ الْمِسْكِ. The Prophet ﷺ said, the smell of the mouth of the one who fasts is more beloved to Allah than the scent of musk. Why is it more beloved to Allah than the scent of musk? Because this smell has only come about due to a worship, and that is refraining from food and drink for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Exactly. Blood is najis. Blood is impure. But what did the Prophet ﷺ say about the blood of the Shaheed? The blood of the Shaheed is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How beloved is it to Allah? That when the Shaheed, the martyr, is martyred for the sake of Allah in the battlefield, we don't wash the body of that Shaheed and we leave the blood stains on that Shaheed's body because Allah loves those particular blood stains. Whereas if we had blood on our bodies, we couldn't pray. We'd have to wash it. If we had blood on our clothes, we'd have to wash them to purify them and to stand in prayer. Is that clear? Likewise, normally we should keep our mouths clean, brushed, have a fragrant smell. Like the Prophet ﷺ said, people shouldn't come to the masjid after having raw onions or garlic because it has a very strong smell and the angels don't like this smell. But in Ramadan, we have a strong smell in our mouths due to what? Due to not eating and drinking all day. Why is this particular smell so beloved to Allah? Because this smell has come about after attending to Allah's commandment of not eating and drinking. So that's why it's beloved to Allah. Is that clear? Placing a wet garment over the body or taking a bath due to intense heat. I don't think we're going to have any heat this Ramadan. How he's saying there's snow on the way. So, but in hot countries, some people, they have to do very heavy manual work all day long. right? And it becomes difficult for them. Bosses are encouraged to make ease for their laborers during Ramadan. But still, if a person has a shower to cool their body down or places a wet garment over them, this is all fine. Those that require nothing yet are disliked. Tasting food or chewing it. Tasting food or chewing it, again, as we said, if a mother chews the food for a child, or if the wife tastes the food for the husband, if he is a bit of a if he's going to cause some problem at iftar time because he's gone hungry all day long, this is an issue. We have to remember Ramadan is the time of fasting, not food and drink. But mashallah, our homes become they become places of a cultural festivity, and every evening of Ramadan, right? And this is what Imam al-Ghazali radiallahu anhu said: in Ramadan you should not eat the foods that you normally don't eat on a normal day. But what we have, the foods of Eid, we have every day in Ramadan. The food of Eid, we have that every single day in Ramadan. And our kitchens that are supposed to be closed until just before Maghrib time are mashallah open from Dhuhr all the way till Maghrib. Right? And then people sit and eat from Maghrib all the way to Isha. And then they think, did I pray my Maghrib or not? Yeah? No. So the purpose of fasting is to cut down on foods and to cut down on our connection to the earth and to become heavenly. But what happens when you fast, or if you're on a diet, your stomach shrinks. All day, and especially our fast is like 21 hours, 20-hour fast, the stomach will shrink. And then if you try to force food into it, it's just going to make you sick, make you unwell. That's not the purpose of fasting. Exactly. The following actions are recommended mustahab while fasting. What are they? To take the pre-dawn meal, suhoor. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Tasahharu, فَإِنَّ فِي السُّحُورِ barakah." Make the suhoor, eat at suhoor time, for that food has blessings in it. Why does it have blessings in it? Because it's eaten at a blessed time, and that is the time before Salatul Fajr, the time of Tahajjud. And to delay it until shortly before Fajr. So, not to have it after Isha and go to sleep and say, I'm done. No. To wait until just before Fajr time, so you have enough energy to get through the entire day. And to hasten in breaking the fast at Maghrib time, so that one reaches the reward of the fast as we mentioned earlier. Now, then he said the following actions during the day necessitate withholding from anything that would violate the fast for the remainder of the day, i.e. it's mandatory to do so. So for example, if somebody breaks the fast, whether accidentally or on purpose, intentionally or unintentionally, they must stop, must cease, mustn't carry on eating for the rest of the day. Exactly. Why? Because the day has a hurma, has a sanctity to it that must be upheld. Also, if a traveler returns home and was not fasting in his journey, the traveler has a choice to fast or to postpone the fast until after Ramadan. Even though it's better to fast in Ramadan, but there might be some elderly, weak people who, if they travel, they won't be able to maintain themselves, so they break their fast and postpone it. If a traveler chooses not to fast whilst traveling, but then returns back home before Maghrib, and people are still fasting, what should that traveler do? Refrain from eating and drinking. Behave like the one who is fasting. Now, if a woman in menstruation or postnatal bleeding becomes pure, so after purity, she must refrain from eating and drinking. But whilst in a state of menstruation, she can eat and drink, but it should be done in private and not in public. If a non-Muslim embraces Islam in the days of Ramadan, should refrain from eating and drinking for the rest of the day, and likewise if a child reaches puberty, then again should refrain from eating and drinking for the rest of the day. Now, we have a question here. Is Salah equal to fasting? Menstruating women don't make up prayers, so why fasting? Both are obligatory. Salah is obligatory and fasting is obligatory. The reason why women don't have to make up their Salah that they miss in the days of menstruation is because Salah is something that we must do every single day. And if, for example, a woman misses for 10 days or less, it's going to be difficult every single month making up all of those amounts of prayers. Whereas fasting is 1 month in a year, she will miss some days, it's easy to make them up rather than making up the prayers. No. Inhaler, most Hanafis say inhaler breaks the fast. True. I think all of them say it. Our teacher Shaykh Samir, he says the inhaler breaks the fast. So somebody who needs the inhaler, either through the recommendation of a Muslim doctor who assesses the situation of this person's health, or through previous experience that a person cannot get through the day except that they need the inhaler, such a person is exempt from fasting. They either postpone their fast till a time when the fasts are much shorter, or if they can't even fast in those days, in the short winter days, then that person pays fidya for every single day and carries on. Exactly. Those who are exempt from fasting, those who are exempt from fasting, a sick person who fears the illness will worsen, either through experience or through the recommendation of a Muslim doctor. So this is like a serious illness. Somebody who wakes up with a headache or a tummy ache or a backache is not exempt from fasting. Is that clear? And the scholars have said if somebody is genuinely quite ill, then they should begin their fast, and if they see that they cannot get through it, then they can break it. Is that clear? A pregnant woman or a nursing woman, with the condition for each that she has a legitimate fear for the baby or for herself. Sometimes missing a prayer is sinful, but sometimes to miss a prayer becomes a must. For example, if somebody misses a prayer out of laziness, this is sinful. On the other hand, if somebody misses a prayer because they were helping somebody in a life and death situation, then that person is not sinful. That's why the scholars have said, for example, a doctor in theatre doing an operation on a patient and the prayer time enters, what should that doctor do? Stop and go and pray? No, carry on with the surgery. Even if he or she misses the prayer, they must make it up later. And they won't be sinful for missing that prayer. The Prophet ﷺ, in one of the battles, he missed 4 prayers. Why? Because the battle was so intense that nobody could stop and go and pray. Is that clear? Likewise with fasting. If it endangers the mother's life or the child's life, then she is allowed not to fast then and to postpone the fast till later. A person undergoing intense thirst such that he fears death. In a hot country, a laborer who's working some very heavy manual work, and it's in the blazing heat, might become dehydrated, might become so exhausted that the person actually fears that they will die. That person is allowed to break the fast. Or a traveler, yet for him to fast is more preferable if it does not harm him. Allah said in the Quran, وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. Those who are traveling, it's better for them to fast. Why? Because fasting at a time when everybody is fasting is easier than to fast all alone. When everybody's eating and you're fasting. Is that clear? That's number one. And number two, because Ramadan comes with its own blessings that cannot be found outside of Ramadan. Somebody who fasts all year round, you find a person who fasts all year round or fasts a lot of days throughout the year, they will tell you fasting in Ramadan is different to fasting for the rest of the 11 months. Why? Because of the blessings that Ramadan comes with. Is that clear? No. Those were some of the rulings regarding fasting. And in the last 10 days of Ramadan, there is a sunnah of making i'tikaf. The Prophet ﷺ would place a tent in his blessed masjid and he would make i'tikaf in his noble masjid. Imam Shurubulali radiallahu anhu said, i'tikaf is to sit at Allah's door and say, oh Allah, I will not leave until you forgive me. That's why the person sits for 10 days and nights asking Allah for forgiveness, turning to Allah. The scholars have said, after the cave of Hira in Makkah al-Mukarramah, the Prophet ﷺ never isolated himself, secluded himself from the people until in Madinatul Munawwarah he started to make i'tikaf in the last 10 days of Ramadan. So this indicates that the last 10 days of Ramadan, their blessings are intensified so much that the Prophet ﷺ sat for i'tikaf and turned his absolute focus towards worship and nothing else. Is that clear? No. I'tikaf is in the last 10 days and nights for men in the masjid and for women in their homes. When I said this, somebody said previously, but what if the woman's got other chores to do? I said, what if the man's got other chores to do? Because the man might have the school runs for the children. He might have to go to work, might have to bring the shopping home. Who is he going to leave that to? And likewise the woman, if she's got young children to look after, etc., etc. So whether a man or a woman, if a person has time and doesn't have other responsibilities that are more important, then a person should try to sit i'tikaf. One righteous man I met, he said to me, I save my annual holidays every single year to sit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last 10 days of Ramadan. Now, should a pregnant woman fast? What if she is having complications in her pregnancy? Is she still obliged? So the scholars have said she should consult a Muslim doctor if the Muslim doctor feels that this is a complicated situation whereby fasting can potentially bring harm to her or the child. Then she is exempt of fasting at that time. She can postpone her fast till after Ramadan. Now, so i'tikaf is in the last 10 days and nights of Ramadan, and this is the time where we have Laylatul Qadr. And Laylatul Qadr can potentially be on one of the odd nights of the last 10 days, 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, or the 29th. And the people who make i'tikaf should seek out these nights in particular, everybody else also, but in particular. So this righteous man, he said, I save my annual leave to sit with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last 10 days. He said, this is my holiday. My holiday is to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sit i'tikaf and disconnect from everything else around me and focus. But the one who wants to make i'tikaf must have a timetable, must have a schedule, must be well prepared. A lot of people, they go to the masjid, they want to make i'tikaf. They don't realize this i'tikaf is not for 10 minutes or 10 hours, it's for 10 days and nights. And if they don't have a set schedule, they'll either end up living on their phone or getting bored and staying asleep all day and night. Right? So it's important that the one who wants to make i'tikaf prepares themselves, sets targets of reciting Quran, studying knowledge, making tasbih, praying nawafil. If they have qada prayers, this is a good opportunity to make up their qada prayers, etc., etc. But it has to have a set schedule for the 10 days and 10 nights. Likewise, the woman, the scholars have said the woman should sit i'tikaf in the house of her masjid, i.e., if there is a set place whereby everybody prays in the house, then she should make i'tikaf there. If there isn't a set place and people pray everywhere, anywhere, in random places, then she should choose one room and make i'tikaf in that room, and shouldn't exit from that room except for necessities like the bathroom or for food, etc. No. Likewise, for the man, shouldn't leave the masjid unless that particular masjid doesn't have the Jum'ah prayer. Because Jum'ah prayer never used to be prayed in all of the masajid, it would only be prayed in the central mosques. So if somebody is sitting i'tikaf in a smaller masjid where there isn't Jum'ah, that person is given allowance to leave for Jum'ah prayer and then return. Likewise, if for some other reason that a person has to leave the masjid, for example, there is some catastrophe that occurs at the masjid, a fire, something's demolished, etc., then that person should leave and go to the next nearest masjid and continue with the i'tikaf therein. Again, this is the sunnah mu'akkada i'tikaf in the last 10 days. If somebody can't do this, what should they try to do? They should try to sit a nafil i'tikaf, and that is, whenever they have an opportunity in the last 10 days, go to the masjid and stay. Right? This is what I say for people who want to make i'tikaf but they have other responsibilities like dropping off the kids and picking them up. I say drop the kids off and go to the masjid. And when it's time to pick them up, go pick them up, drop them off, and then come back to the masjid. Right? So try to engage this time in worship. But most people, they are engaged in shopping in the last 10 days because they're more concerned about Eid than the worship of the last 10 days. No. Also, we shouldn't miss out on the opportunity of Laylatul Qadr. Most people, am I just hearing the music? Is everybody hearing?
Yeah, it was some kind of sick interference, but we don't know what it is.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't happen at any other time.
There's some background music, huh? Okay.
Saturday night.
This is the sunnah i'tikaf. If somebody can't make the sunnah i'tikaf, should try to make a nafil i'tikaf. And you have Laylatul Qadr. Some people just think it's going to be on the 27th and that's it. No, it doesn't always be like that. It doesn't always fall on the 27th. Is that clear? A lot of scholars have said it's most probably on the 27th, but it moves around. It could be on the 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, or the 29th. And then the night of Eid is a night when people are just chilling. The problem with that is, the scholars have said, if that is how the Ramadan ends, then that's a bad sign. And that could be a sign that nothing was accepted. And see how quick the sign turns up? This is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, in that night of Eid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives the equivalent of the amount of people that He had forgiven throughout Ramadan. In that night. Right? And the Sahaba said, is that Laylatul Qadr? And the Prophet ﷺ said, no, that's not Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr is different. Right? So we shouldn't miss out on any of the opportunities of the last 10 nights. How did the Prophet ﷺ perform i'tikaf? Sahaba. So the i'tikaf was that the Prophet ﷺ struck a tent in his blessed masjid and he stayed within that tent day and night unless he came out for the ritual prayers and he led the prayers. Otherwise he was in that tent in a state of worship, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sadly, many people use mobile phones and laptops, etc. during i'tikaf. What is the ruling on this? The thing is, we wouldn't say it's haram. What we say to people is, it defeats the object of your i'tikaf. The object of i'tikaf is to switch off, is to disconnect. But if that disconnect doesn't happen and you get more time to browse the internet and do your shopping and go on Gumtree, right, because nobody's disturbing you, and play your games, what was the point of i'tikaf? What was the point sitting at Allah's door? Do that somewhere else, right? The whole purpose of i'tikaf is you're just switching off from everything and connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last 10 days.
If there was a traveler, is there a rule that the traveler has to go out before Fajr?
Good question. So if somebody is traveling, when are they exempt from fasting? A traveler who leaves out after Maghrib and before Fajr is exempt from fasting. But a traveler who leaves during the day must fast. Is that clear? Okay. You want to ask your questions?
Yeah, this is questions from a lot of people.
Go ahead.
Now, so start with the question one. Can we choose the early Fajr start time due to work?
Can we choose the early Fajr?
So I think there's a few timetables going, but there's an early Fajr.
I'll pass on that question.
Okay,
The person who asked that question probably knows the answer too. That's a tricky question because look, there's a few different opinions that people follow. People should follow the opinion that they feel confident with. Exactly. I can't say choose this opinion or choose that opinion. Exactly. This religion is a sensible religion. You follow what you feel confident with, and you follow what is sensible for you. I'll give you an example. One year I was making i'tikaf, and there was a group of other people also, and at the end, one brother came to me one day before at Maghrib time, and he was like really worried. He said to me, my family are doing Eid tomorrow, and we were going to sit another day, do Eid the day after. He said to me, he was very reluctant. He said to me, my family are doing Eid tomorrow. I said, pack your bags and go home. He said, and I said to him, and if you don't go home, I'll throw you out. Because it doesn't make sense. How are you sitting there i'tikaf and your children are making Eid and they say, where's dad? Do you understand? This religion is a sensible religion. This is why people should follow the opinions that they feel confident with and stick to them, not pick and choose. Carry on.
Sorry, so whilst reading, as we know, Quran recitation in Ramadan is very important. But sometimes the question is, if you get tired, you want to just do tasbih for a while.
Yeah, that's
Have a
fine.
break. But what's the best tasbih, or what's the sunnah tasbih?
Good question. The scholars have said a person should make worship of different varieties and shouldn't just make worship of one set way. Why? Because the human nature is to get bored. This is why Imam al-Nawawi radiallahu anh, when he used to sit at night to study, he used to open up like 10 books in front of him. And he would start with one. When he would feel a bit tired in that science, he'd move to the next one. And he'd be refreshed. When he'd get tired in that one, he'd move to the next one, he'd feel refreshed. Likewise in worship, when somebody is reciting the Quran, they feel a bit tired, then make some tasbih. And from the best of tasbih is Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, Subhanallah al-Azim. Go ahead.
Sorry, when you mentioned Imam Nawawi now, is it best to focus on recitation or like Arabic or tafsir? So the question is that, yeah, I think you've answered that to be fair. They're saying that shall we focus on tafsir,
Good question.
understanding, or shall we just recite this is Shahjalal Ramadan, you know?
Good question. The scholars have said, in that case where a person doesn't understand the Arabic, a person should combine between the two. Have some recitation and some translation, tafsir and understanding. Should try to combine between the two. Because the purpose of recitation of the Quran is reward, but a higher purpose than that is guidance. Exactly.
Also, in relation to Qada namaz, we mentioned earlier, so obviously we know the reward is a lot more during Ramadan, so you get the reward of a fard, of a nawafil. So, but if you have a lot of Qada, should that supersede? Should you do the Qada, fard Qada, supposed to the nawafil?
Yeah, good question. The scholars have said, the one who has Qada prayers to make up should not pray any nawafil. Why? Because the Qada prayers take priority over the nawafil. One will not be asked about nawafil, but one will be asked about the missed prayers, the fard prayers. No.
There's a lot of questions, so
Right.
let's stop. Yeah, okay. So in relation to exam, GCSEs exams are pretty much same time around Ramadan. So are they allowed to miss the fast, number one? Secondly, if they're not allowed to miss the fast, then can they miss the Taraweeh to give them energy and do
Good
the
question, very good question. Fast cannot be missed for any excuse, for any reason, unless it's life-threatening. Right? And as I said earlier, for those who are sitting exams, it's better for them to fast than not to fast. Because when the stomach is empty, the mind is sharper, it's clearer, and its focus is more strong. Is that clear? So taking up the excuse that I've got exams and I don't want to fast, what are you going to do? You're going to fill your stomach with food. When you get to the exam hall, you're not going to know what to write. Is that clear? So it's better to fast for them. And the second about Taraweeh is Sunnah. Is that clear? So people who, for example, our fasts are very long in this country, especially now in summer. People who can't make the Taraweeh because they've had a tiring day at work, then what they should try to do is pray Taraweeh on the weekends. Because Taraweeh is Sunnah, it's not an obligation. So why the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed Taraweeh one night, second night, third night, fourth night, he didn't come out. The Sahaba said, Messenger of Allah, you didn't come out. He said, I feared if I had come out, it would have become an obligation. Which means the Prophet ﷺ didn't want to make Taraweeh an obligation. Taraweeh is Sunnah. People who have time, people who have energy, they should pray it. But people who have other responsibilities, or like children, young teenagers who've got exams and need to revise, of course they should miss it until weekends or whenever they have an opportunity to pray it.
So just to add to that as well, I'm just going to relate this question to that one. For example, somebody's not got the energy for that day, or generally just struggles to stand in Taraweeh for a long time. This is a long. So say they do 10 rak'ah, for example, and then they decide, I'll do the other 10 rak'ah in my own pace at home. Is that allowed?
Good question. What the scholars have said is, if the Imam realizes that the congregation cannot stand for the long duration of reciting the whole Quran in Ramadan, then the Imam should pray the short surahs. Is that clear? This is why I tell people in summer times in the UK, most of the masjids should be praying the short surahs. Why? Because then they have a greater congregation. People will be more encouraged to attend, and it'll be easier for them. Whereas in winter, when Isha is like at 5:30, 6 o'clock, you've got like 12 hours to pray 20 rak'at. You can do as you wish. You recite a whole juz, and people will still have the entire night to sleep and wake up in the morning and make suhoor at like 7 o'clock and go to work and break fast at 4 o'clock, it's easy. But if you're breaking fast at 9:30, you go for Taraweeh at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and then you have to wait for a whole stand for a whole juz, it's going to be difficult. Right? So if somebody listens to 10 rak'at with the imam and prays the other 10 at their own pace, that's also fine. But they'll pray all 20.
Yeah, I mean, in this area we don't have option of short surahs, they all do khatams.
Yeah.
So that option would be the best one for
Yeah.
Okay. So another one, nicotine patches. If somebody is a heavy smoker, is that allowed to use?
That's allowed.
That's allowed. And asthma for inhaling, I think you've answered that one before. Okay, if you have a dua, what's the best dua to recite whilst in Ramadan for hajat to be fulfilled? Is there anything?
The most favorite dua of the Prophet ﷺ was رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ.
Okay. Right, swimming, is it allowed?
As long as the water doesn't go into the throat.
Okay.
So if somebody's swimming, not putting their head in.
Also, going to the gym.
It's fine as long as it doesn't weaken a person from fasting. If somebody works out too much and then they get dehydrated or they need to drink water because they sweated so much, etc., then it probably be makruh. But if somebody is doing just a moderate treadmill or something like that, as long as they feel that they will be strong enough to continue, that's okay.
And what should the food be? I know you mentioned earlier that it shouldn't be your regular food or anything extra. So what should we generally be? Just healthy, light food, or
it should be your regular food that you normally eat, and not something exceptional. No. And in days like this, in the long summer days, of course, a lot more fruit is encouraged to stay hydrated. No.
Just finally, so the question here is that the state, the title is that the Ramadan of the Prophet. So, for example, what state would the Prophet, would he be in a type of khalwa during Ramadan? Not stay away from people as such. He was a prophet. He's saying for the awam. Is it a state where you would keep yourself to yourself and just focus on dhikr and azkar and reflection, or is it did he instruct us to be in a position where we should go out and be active at the same time? So
that's the next part, inshallah. We'll cover.
That's fine. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
Don't want a piece of paper.
Okay. If somebody enters the masjid with the intention of completing i'tikaf for 10 days and then, for various reasons, has to leave i'tikaf, can they return to the mosque and complete the i'tikaf? Will they have the same rewards? Should they refrain from talking during the period they have to leave the i'tikaf? If somebody has to leave the i'tikaf for reasons other than, for example, relieving themselves, using the washroom, finding food, basic necessities of life, then the i'tikaf that particular i'tikaf of the sunnah will be nullified. And a person would have to make that i'tikaf up the year after or whenever the person has an opportunity. We'll keep those questions to the next part. So we'll carry on now. So Imam al-Ghazali radiallahu anhu, he divides people who fast into 3 categories. Imam al-Ghazali, he says, the first category of people who fast, they tick the basic boxes of the one who fasts. More than this they don't do. Imam al-Ghazali says, that person would have fulfilled the obligation of fasting. He said, but every believing person should be aiming for the next category. And that's the second category. What's the second category? The second category is that a person fasts from food, drink, and desire, but also on top of that, all of a person's limbs also fast. person's eyes fast, ears fast, stomach fasts, hand fast, feet fast, the entire body fasts. You're going to say the rest of the body doesn't take in food or drink. How do they fast? The scholars have said the eyes fast from all of that which is haram, from engaging and looking at all of that which is haram. When the eye does that, the eye is fasting. Likewise, the tongue must fast. From what? From backbiting, from swearing, from argumentation, from cheating, from tale-telling, from insulting, abusing, etc., etc. All of these negative matters of the tongue must fast from them. And we know the story of the two women who were brought to the Prophet ﷺ. They vomited out flesh. What did he say? They began their fast upon halal and they ended it upon haram. What was the haram that they did? Backbiting. Is that clear? Likewise, the ears must fast. From what? From listening into that which is haram. Listening to people backbiting is haram. Listening to people cheating and tale-telling and swearing and insulting is haram. Right? So, the one who does it with the tongue is doing wrong, and the one who listens with the ear is doing wrong. Likewise, the hands must fast. From what? The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. The Muslim is the one from whose hands and tongue other Muslims are safe. If other Muslims are not safe from the tongue or the hand of another, then that person is deficient in their definition of being a Muslim. Is that clear? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of the hunger and thirst of the one who doesn't refrain from haram in Ramadan. Is that clear? Imam al-Ghazali says that every believing person must aim to reach this stage. And that is for the body to also fast. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only mention the fasting of the stomach? Why didn't Allah say, let your eyes fast and let your ears fast and hands fast and feet fast and tongue fast, etc.? Why did Allah only want our stomachs to fast? The scholars have said, because the one who is able to refrain from food, drink and desire has fasted from the most difficult of matters. For that person to fast, the fast of the eyes and the ears and the hands and the feet will be even easier. What does that mean? When somebody is hungry, they'll do anything just to get their food. They'll become upset, they'll become angry, they'll even fight for it. But in Ramadan, they start to fast. They give up on that food and drink and desire. So the one who can do that will be able to accomplish the fast of the rest of the limbs. Is that clear? And Imam al-Ghazali, he says, fasting is one of the closest doors of reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the closest channels in reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? He says, because in Ramadan, the human beings, they pick up the characteristics of the angels. He says the angels don't eat, they don't drink, and they don't have desire. What do they do all day long and night? Make zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. And they do exactly as Allah wants them to do, and they don't disobey Him. What happens in Ramadan? In the daylight hours, we stop eating, drinking, and approaching our desires, which means this human being in the daylight hours of Ramadan has become angelic. He doesn't stop there. Imam al-Ghazali says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't eat and He doesn't drink. Allah is as-samad. He's not in need of anything or anybody. Everything and everybody is in need of Him. In Ramadan, when the believing person stops eating and drinking in the daylight hours, the believing person has adopted a characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ. Adopt the characteristics of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what's it here? Of giving up food and drink. And on top of that, the scholars have said, the one who gives up on food and drink in the daylight hours of Ramadan is a person who is presenting his confidence and reliance and dependence upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That person is saying, my existence depends upon Allah, not upon food and drink. My existence depends upon Allah and not on food and drink. Then that person becomes from the people of tawakkul, the people of reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is that clear? So this is one of the reasons why Allah made fast the fast of the stomach. The other reason is, the scholars have said, and the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مَلَأَ ابْنُ آدَمْ وِعَاءً شَرٌّ مِّن بَطْنِهِ. The child of Adam has not filled a vessel worse than the stomach. It's the worst vessel that can be filled. Why? Because when the stomach is full, the limbs have energy. The desire is inflamed. A person's lowly desire is inflamed. And the limbs have strength and power. Whereas when the stomach's empty, what do you feel at Asr time in Ramadan? Your arms are going numb, you don't have any energy, you feel so lethargic, you feel drained. All of this, the scholars have said, when the body is drained and loses energy and is broken, that's when the soul becomes strong. That's when the soul becomes strong. That's when the soul can start to fly to its destination. That's when the soul can connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas when the stomach is full, the limbs have their strength, the desire is an enormous fire that's burning a person, that's when the soul is lost. The soul can't focus, it can't concentrate, and it doesn't have any direction. Is that clear? This is why you will see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he say? He said, حَسْبُ ابْنُ آدَمْ لُقِيمَاتْ يُقِمْنَ بِهِ صُلْبًا. It's enough for the child of Adam to have some morsels of food to keep the back straight. So the purpose, the objective of having food for the Prophet ﷺ was to keep the back straight. And he said, luqaymat is enough. And the scholars have said, luqaymat is a word that indicates a number between 3 and 9. Not less than 3 and not more than 9. Which means the Prophet ﷺ is saying, up to 9 morsels of food are enough for you to keep your back straight. That's it. Why did he say that? Because he knew that the objective of the believing person is not just to fill the stomach, because then that will make the soul heavy. That will make the soul lose its direction and focus. Whereas when the stomach is empty, it will be focused, it can concentrate, it will realize and recognize what Allah has sent in the Quran. Is that clear? Try it. Pray on an empty stomach and you realize you're actually focusing. You're not thinking about what you're going to buy at Asda. Right? And pray with a full stomach, you realize you don't even know what rak'at you're praying. You get it? No. So this is the second type of fast. The fast of those whose stomach fasts but also their limbs fast. Is that clear? And this is a very important type of fast. If we can reach this type of fast, then we will come out of Ramadan nurtured. We will come out of Ramadan refined. We will come out of Ramadan and the sins we will despise sins and be disgusted of them. Why? Because the eyes are focusing, the ears are concentrating, the hands are engaged. Everything of the body is engaged in Allah's worship. When everything of the body is engaged in Allah's worship, such a person feels disgusted even upon hearing the name of sins, let alone engaging in them. Is that clear? So this second category is very important. Then Imam al-Ghazali mentions the third category, and he says this third category is of the Anbiya, of the prophets, and the high elect Siddiqeen of this ummah. The Siddiqeen are people of extremely high righteous stations who are just after the prophets. And what's that? Imam al-Ghazali, he says, when they fast, their stomachs fast, they fast from food, drink and desire like the first category. They fast like the second category. All of their body limbs fast, refrain from haram and that which is disliked and that which is not preferred, and only engage in that which is allowed. On top of that, their hearts fast. What do their hearts fast from? Their hearts fast from everything other than Allah. Everything other than Allah, their hearts fast from it. Which means they don't let into their hearts anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam al-Qushayri radiallahu anhu, he mentioned that one of the righteous, he said, I stood at the door of my heart for 40 years and I didn't let anybody except Allah enter into it. Right? Imam al-Ghazali, he says, this is the station of the Anbiya and the high elect Siddiqeen, that throughout the day and night of Ramadan, they are guarding their limbs, their stomach, but they are also guarding their hearts from connecting onto other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam al-Ghazali radiallahu anhu said, you may not be able to do this all day long, this third station. You may not be able to do it all day long, but you should not miss out on it for certain moments of the day and night. Which means you should seclude yourself for just moments, for an hour, half an hour, 10 minutes, however long it takes you, and focus upon your heart and concentrate upon your heart and only think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with your heart and not let any other thought cross your mind. That will be the fast of your heart. Is that clear? That's a station, as Imam al-Ghazali says, we will not be able to maintain all day long. But the scholars have said, مَا لَا يُدْرَكُ كُلُّهُ لَا يُتْرَكُ جُزْءُهُ. What you can't accomplish all of doesn't mean you can miss out a bit of. You can take something of it. What you can't take up all, when you go to the ocean and you need a drink, you can't drink the whole ocean, but that doesn't mean you can't take a glass. Right? Likewise here, Imam al-Ghazali is saying, for you to maintain all of that is not possible. But for you not to miss out on some of it is possible. Now, then the fast of the Prophet ﷺ, like the rest of his blessed life, was that his heart was engaged with Allah whilst his body was engaged with people. Is that clear? He never turned away from people, he never disengaged with people, he was always with his people. This is why the scholars have said the Prophet ﷺ and the life of the Sahaba was such that they would buy and sell and do business and work in the marketplaces, and they would marry, they would have children, and they would have families, and they would travel, and they would be resident, and etc. All of the normative matters of life they would engage in. But the difference is, their hearts would only be for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even in the mists and in the depths of the marketplaces, their bodies would be engaging in business, but their hearts would be only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, and Ramadan is the best time to train the heart for that. Ramadan is the best time to train the heart for that. For when the stomach cuts down on food, the heart has time to concentrate. The soul has space to think. Whereas when the stomach is full, then that's it, nothing's going to happen. This is why people say, if you want somebody to do something for you, make sure it's done before lunch. After lunch, forget about it. Everybody's watching the clock and saying, what time am I going to get home? No. Does anybody have any questions? No. Okay, so if somebody is going for work, then they will only be able to do nafil i'tikaf, whether in the masjid for the men or at home for the women. Whereas if somebody is not going for work, a woman is not going for work, she sits i'tikaf, but then she does some chores at home like cooking, this is fine as long as This is fine if there is nobody else who can undertake that. Exactly, because that's a necessity of life, which is eating. And to eat, you need to cook. So that's fine. If fasts are broken accidentally, like taking water or toothpaste, it breaks, do you carry on with the fast or eat? No. Once this fast has broken, this is accidentally, in this case, even if somebody intentionally breaks it, the scholars have said, the person should immediately cease from eating and drinking for the remainder of the day, even though they are not fasting. Because the day has sanctity to it, hurma. Okay, if somebody has many years of prayers and they weren't aware that they have to make them up, then does this need to be completed before the regular prayers? No. For example, now it's nearly Maghrib time. If somebody didn't pray Maghrib like a week ago, should they pray their current Maghrib first or make that one? Right. They had lots of prayers from before. Then they should pray their current prayers and then make the others up. Exactly. But if the prayers were less than 6 or less than 6 prayers, then they should make the previous ones up first and then pray the current ones. But if it was more than 6 prayers, then they can pray the current prayers and make the missed ones whenever. If somebody is ill in Ramadan, seriously ill, and they can't fast, but then wants to fast Mondays and Fridays, is that okay? Is that Mondays and Fridays in Ramadan or out of Ramadan? In Ramadan. Okay, if somebody is ill, seriously ill and they can't fast, but then they fast on Monday and Friday, of course that's fine, but then the question is, how can they fast on the Monday and the Friday? Then that's the question. If they can fast on Monday and Friday, or maybe they can only fast for some days, their health will only permit for some days, then that's fine, but then they should try to make up the rest of their fast after Ramadan, if they can, in the short days of winter. Somebody has forgotten how many fasts or prayers to make up, what do they do? You should estimate and then add on to. If somebody has a year or so of Qada prayers, and so they weren't aware that prayer was obligatory once they reach puberty, does this mean they cannot make any nafil salah until they complete the missed prayer? Yes. They should make all their Qada prayers up first before they pray their nafil. Because nafil they won't be asked about, Qada they will be asked about.
Got a question. So does fast break by being unconscious? If you're unconscious.
Yes.
Okay. And next question. Does the old who cannot fast due to age and health, do they have to pay a fidya?
Yes.
So what's the amount?
So it's like the fitrana that they pay
Okay.
for every single day.
I think the mosque specifies
About £4 or £5.
If you're unconscious, is it just making up that fast again?
Yes, just that one fast. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
If you are traveling and let's say you're on a plane and it comes to open your fast but you don't know what time zone you're in, what would you recommend someone does?
Good question. Some of the scholars, some of our teachers, if they were traveling on plane and they were fasting, they would only ever break their fast until once they reached their destination. Right? That's the more tougher opinion to follow. If somebody can do that, that's good. Otherwise, if somebody is on a plane and they reach a time zone where Maghrib has entered, they can break their fast. Sorry?
Would the air, because the aeroplanes are a higher place, then the sun will be different.
No, but wherever they've reached, if they've reached a place where Maghrib has entered, then they can break their fast.
So,
Sorry, there was a question. Somebody had a question here? Writing. Go ahead.
yeah, the question is like, in Ramadan, generally what people try to do is say, look, I want to stop, take time off work or whatever. I mean, you mentioned the last 10 days of I'tikaf. There's somebody who takes annual leave for that. But say for the first 10 days and the second, then what's recommended? Is it best to take time off and go to the mosque, or is it recommended to go about doing your daily job? And
Good question. So it all depends upon a person's personal schedule and personal work lifestyle, right? What the scholars have said that those people who are able to take off time in Ramadan, then that's recommended. To free up one's time for worship. Because this is a season of worship. Whereas those who can't get annual leave, they can't get holidays, or they can't afford them, then for them to go to work is worship. Is that clear? As it is, all year round, earning halal is worship. But then earning halal in Ramadan will have extra reward also. Is that clear?
I've got one question. It's regarding injections or giving blood, as in giving blood, donating it, having a blood sample taken from the doctors, receiving vaccines and insulin. Would that break the fast? Would that be allowed?
Taking out blood doesn't break the fast.
Okay.
Taking insulins and injections.
Obviously, you have said that there are medical exemptions to
Yeah.
fasting, but if it's not, so if they can fast, but they still need insulin. Would that be?
Yeah, so there's a difference of opinion there. Some scholars have said if it's going into the muscle, then it's fine. If it's going to the bloodstream, then it's not, right? And some scholars have allowed it altogether. Exactly.
How about vaccines?
The same there. So that's a bit more easier there. Can you pray Nafal Sunnah like Tahajjud, Taraweeh and Sunnah prayers if you've not caught up from? Can't you do both like catch up? No. What the scholars have said, if you want to pray Tahajjud, wake up at that time and make your Qada prayers. And Allah will give you the reward of what you intend also. Is that clear? Qada prayers are extremely important. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, أَوَّلُ مَا يُسْأَلُ عَنْهُ الْعَبْدُ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ الصَّلَاةِ. The first thing that a servant will be asked about on the Day of Judgment is prayer. Which prayer? Not the nafil and the tahajjud and about the obligatory prayer. That comes first and foremost. Is that clear? So if somebody wants to pray nawafil, let's say after Maghrib wants to pray 6 awabin, instead of praying 6 awabin, pray 6 fajrs you've missed. Is that clear? No. So a person shouldn't pray tahajjud as nawafil if they've got qada prayers. But if they want to pray at that time, they should pray qada prayers. Let's say just on a normal day, somebody wants to wake up at tahajjud time, fine, wake up. But if you've got qada prayers, it's better for you to pray your qada prayers at tahajjud time than to pray your nawafil prayers. Is that clear? No. I met one old man in Medina Munawwara once, and he said to me, he was praying lots of prayers, and then he finished and he sat down and I started speaking to him, very old man. He said to me, son, you know all of these prayers I'm praying, they're my qada prayers. The reason I'm praying them here is I have greater hope that perhaps Allah will accept them. Do you get it? Likewise, at tahajjud time, when you want to wake up for tahajjud, don't pray nafal, pray your qada prayers. Perhaps Allah will forgive. So if nobody has any other questions, we can stop there, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. We ask the Imam Sahib to make dua for us, inshallah. تفضل. No, Bismillah. 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 تفضل.
اللهم آمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا، وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم احسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها، وأجرنا يا الله من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة. اللهم توفنا مسلمين، اللهم توفنا مسلمين، اللهم توفنا مسلمين، وألحقنا بالصالحين غير خزايا ولا مفتونين. وأفوض أمري إلى الله، إن الله بصير بالعباد. بفضل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين.
السلام
شهر
عليكم.
رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان.